Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. I'm Harper LeBel. Our producer today is Logan Landers, and visiting for Vincent Turner, who's not able to be with us here today, is my son, Brian LeBel. Brian, thank you for being a part of the show. We're going to talk about the National Football League. We've looked at some college sports updates and games and situations that are taking place on the different show that we had for the college. But this is strictly NFL. We're just going to talk about the National Football League and some of the big games that are taking place. But first, welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for having me. I'm ready to dive into it. I'm excited to talk about the games.
Well, last week we looked at a few games that carried over in week 11. Minnesota played well. Chicago ended up losing to the Green Bay Packers on a last-second field goal that was blocked. The Minnesota Vikings at 8-2. They had a little bit of a lull there. They're 3-2 in their last 5 games, and they'll be going to Soldier Field and taking on a Bears team that right now I think they're not in disarray. Don't get me wrong, but they don't know how to protect their quarterback. They've got a really good defense, but right now they're struggling to find a way to win a ball game. I think Minnesota goes in there and handles their business. They're going to be just fine with that. But 8-2 Minnesota ends up going to the 4-6 Chicago Bears. Brian, your thoughts on this one?
I love what Minnesota's been doing. I think Flores has done a tremendous job. O'Connell's done a great job too. The coaching there has been top tier because you bring in Sam Darnold. You originally draft a young quarterback who you want to bring in who's been great. You have an injury early on, and then you kind of slide Sam Darnold, and they look like they haven't missed a beat. Justin Jefferson's had a great year. Jordan Addison's been kind of banged up a little bit, but he's been fantastic. But the defense is the real story. Flores has been fantastic. They can get after the quarterback, and I don't think that bodes well for the Bears. I think Eberflus and Caleb Williams are going to have their hands full with trying to keep him upright. I think they're going to give him a lot of different looks. I think this could be a welcome to the NFL moment for him in both a positive and a negative way for Caleb, because I think if he plays well, he had some moments against Green Bay last week who they're probably going to try to do something very similar. The Vikings are to what the Packers did, and he looked pretty good. They should have won that game. Special teams kind of let him down. I just, at this stage, though, I still think they're young. I think, unfortunately, they're the 4th best team in a division that's just really, really solid. And I think Minnesota is going to prove that. Like you said, I think they're going to come out on top.
Bears defense is pretty good. They're ranked 7th in the league right now. They've got 25 sacks, 9 interceptions. They have 8 fumble recoveries that so they've done a good job averaging 18 points a game that they give up. But you mentioned Minnesota's defense, 35 sacks for them, 16 interceptions, 5 fumble recoveries. They only give up 17 points a game on average, and that's number 4 in the league right now. The big difference for me is Minnesota's defense is keeping them in ball games. The offense doesn't have to play well, but if they do, they are ending up blowing people out. They're 3-2 in their last 5 games. Tennessee, Jacksonville, Indiana, all wins against the AFC opponent, but that they lost to Detroit. Let's be honest, Detroit's the team in the division that they've got to win. Any other thoughts about Minnesota before we move on?
They're 8-2, and they're only a game back of the Lions, but with how well the Lions are playing, it feels like they're miles behind them, which is crazy to think about with how good Detroit is. But this feels like almost not a must win, but if they want to keep pace in the division, I think they're a playoff team, but if they want to keep pace in the division, they're going to have to beat Chicago. Chicago's a middle of the pack team too. They're not a bad team by any means, but like I said earlier, they're the 4th best team in the best division of football. I think Minnesota takes care of business because I think they need to. I think they're going to be rested. I think they'll be prepared. I see them winning this game.
Last year in Green Bay, Aaron Jones really impressed me. I thought he was a very, very good player and a dynamic runner. He has 692 yards so far this season. He's also got 262 yards receiving the ball. So he's one of those dual threat guys. If you don't hand the ball off to him, you can dump it off to him as well. The team has only 5 rushing touchdowns, 19 receiving touchdowns. So that, to me, they're going to try to balance that out. Maybe they get that done with 2 or 3 touchdowns against the Bears. But Minnesota's for real. I think they're a playoff contender. Another team that is fighting for the playoffs right now and moving their way up in a very difficult division, with the exception of the Raiders, I would call it a 3-team race in the AFC West. You obviously have Kansas City, and surprise, surprise, guess what? The LA Chargers are now relevant, but the Denver Broncos are making some noise as well. The 6-5 Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos end up going to Las Vegas to take on the 2-8 Raiders, and this is a 4:05 kickoff. Brian, I think if Denver just shows up, plays well, I think they can dominate in this game. The Raiders are abysmal right now. They're really struggling. They're 0-6 in their last 6 games. Your thoughts about Denver heading into Allegiant Field?
I think you need to double and triple team Brock Bowers. You find where he is on the field and you take him out of the equation because he's been phenomenal this year. He's one of the lone bright spots for this Raiders team. I think he's over 700 yards. He leads the team in touchdowns. He's been spectacular. On a really bad team, too. They've been up and down. Desmond Ridder and Gardner Minshew, who's the quarterback the last couple of weeks, we haven't really known. But Denver is, they beat the snot out of the Falcons last week, a team that really was one of the best offensive teams in the league. They only scored 6 points. Kirk Cousins looked uncomfortable. They got after the quarterback. They played the kind of football that Denver played back when they were Super Bowl contenders back in 2015, when they could get after the quarterback, they could play good defense in the back end. And Bo Nix, he looks comfortable. He looks great in that offense. Sean Payton's done a phenomenal job making sure he's exactly that. He's scoring touchdowns. He's making good passes, not really turning the ball over. It's very dark horse for rookie of the year right now, in my opinion. I could see him sneaking in there, and I definitely see the Broncos taking care of business this one. It is a divisional game. Anything could happen. These games are usually close, but I think Denver takes care of business in this one.
Yeah, when you mentioned Brock Bowers, what a surprise for this young man to be able to get open. I think he's gained a little bit of weight. He's a little bit bigger, but he's really been impressive. Might be a Rookie of the Year candidate. He may not win it, but he'll get some votes because the 10.1 average, 10.1 yards per catch is certainly impressive. I think he's a third down guy that Minshew has decided to go to. 3 touchdowns right now. So he's not blowing it out of the water, but he's really been a consistency on that Raiders team that doesn't have a whole lot of consistency in it. But when you talk about defense, number 3 in the league, that's Denver. All right, they average 16 points a game is what they give up. 39 sacks, 8 interceptions. They did make the Falcons look like they had no idea what they were doing because nothing worked with Atlanta. They do that again in Vegas. I think they'll be 7-5 before we know it. Another team that has impressed me this year so far, especially early on, the NFC West leaders are the Arizona Cardinals. They're 6-4 right now. And Jonathan Gannon, I did not think that he would be a name that I would need to learn very quickly, but they take on the Seahawks in Seattle. Mike McDonald, they are 5-5 right now. They're 2-3 in their last 5 games. One of those wins was against Atlanta. What are your thoughts here about Arizona heading in to play the Seahawks?
Kyler Murray's played really good football this year. They've run the ball a lot more than they have in the past. They're relying less on his arm. They got a lot of young guys on the outside. Trey McBride is very, very good at tight end, and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. But they've relied a lot on Connor. They've relied. Kyler Murray's rushing yards are up too. They've controlled the ball. They've done it very, very well against San Francisco. They kind of dominated the line of scrimmage a little bit, which looked, it was almost a complete flip of the script because you would expect to see that on the other end from the 49ers. And they've won convincingly a couple times. This team looks really good. They look like they could be for real. Seattle is keeping pace. This is a big game for them. I think the crowd is going to be raucous, and I think Geno Smith is he's not going to beat you, but he's definitely not losing any football games. He's had a couple of moments where he's looked very, very good. I think Arizona, I believe they're coming off of a bye. I think they're going to be a little more prepared for this. I think they take this game. I think it's going to be another close game. It's another divisional game, and I'm excited to watch this game, honestly. I think it could be the game of the week.
Well, DK Metcalf still coming off an injury, but you told me a couple of weeks ago, hey, this guy Jackson Smith in Jingba, man, This guy can play. And he's got 60 receptions right now, 11.3, 3 touchdowns, which isn't, earth-shattering, but I agree with you. This guy can ball.
When DK got hurt, he had to step up in the offense, and they had no choice but to trust him, and he showed why he was so good. Coming out of college, he was a very high draft pick out of Ohio State. I believe he still owns the Rose Bowl record for most catches and yards. I mean, he could play. He almost single-handedly won that game against the Rams just a couple weeks back. Watch out for him. And when DK gets back to 100%, I don't think he's there yet. He's still got that knee injury, still banged up. They consider him week to week. I believe he's playing on Sunday, barring any setbacks. But JSN's very good. Don't be surprised to see him have another good week.
Yeah. Here's some numbers for you. Seattle is number 2 in passing in the league right now, 260 yards, but they're 28th in rushing, under 100. They're just at 91 yards per game. They score 23 points a game. They give up 23 points a game. Guess what? That's why they're 5-5. Arizona, a little bit different. 23rd in terms of their passing, but they're number 5 in terms of their rushing right now in the league. And Kyler Murray, you mentioned him. He averages 8.1 yards every time he touches the ball. He's been sacked 15 times, but when he does decide to cross the line of scrimmage, he makes a big play out of it. And James Conner, averaging 4.4 yards. He's got 697. So his next carry, he'll have over 700 yards. But Arizona going into Seattle should be a really good football game. Interested in seeing how that one turns out. If you're looking at numbers, San Francisco has them. Offensively, they're fourth in passing. They're seventh in rushing. They're eighth in scoring, but yet they're 5-5 as well. They can't seem to keep people from getting out of the end zone. Your thoughts about San Francisco at 5-5 going into Green Bay, who is 7-3?
Well, it was a matter of wait till they get healthy, wait till McCaffrey comes back, wait till all these things happen. They got to get the ball rolling, and that's already happened. They're 5-5. At some point, if this team is going to be a Super Bowl contender, which they have been for a couple of years, they keep going, and they've come up just short, falling up against Kansas City a couple of times. But it's hey, this is game 11. At some point, you're going to have to start winning games because Arizona's winning games. They lost to Seattle last week in a heartbreaker. And they're playing against a Green Bay team who's trying to do the same thing. They're trying to keep pace in their division with the Detroit Lions. And I almost feel like Green Bay hasn't fully 100% gotten there either. But Purdy hasn't played bad football. The numbers don't lie. They're playing good football on the offensive end. It's just uncharacteristically, the defense has just been in a major decline. And I know Shanahan, he's a great offensive mind. He can maybe work some things out to where maybe, hey, we run the ball a little bit more, we control the ball a little bit more to try to take the pressure off of our defense. But Jordan Love and the Packers have no intention of taking it easy on them. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with that offense. They'll have their hands full.
Well, I know you said on numerous occasions the head coach of San Francisco, the head coach at Green Bay, were both assistants here in Atlanta. We let them both slip away along with some other young talent. But let's take a look at the Packers. At the end of any season, if you're in the top 10 in any category, you can consider yourself to be a possibility for a playoff team. That certainly bodes well for you. Here's where Green Bay is in terms of top 10. They're 9th in passing offense. They're 4th in rushing offense. They're 8th in scoring, and they're 10th in defense, holding teams to only 21 points a game. That's very, very good right now. They're well into being a playoff team, but when you've got to go against Detroit, it may be a wild card. You could be a team that wins 12 games and still be a wild card in that division, but should be a great one. 4:25 from Lambeau Field. That game will be on Fox. The Monday night game, the Harbaugh Bowl. Do I need to say anything else? You've got Jim, you've got John, you've got Baltimore, you've got Los Angeles Chargers. We've talked a little bit about how the Chargers have improved this year, but I still think the Ravens, they rush the ball as good as anybody out there. I don't think they need to give it to Derrick Henry as much as they do, but nonetheless, he has been an amazing running back so far this year. Very impressed with him and what the offensive line has been able to do to not only push forward for Derrick, but to stay back and protect their quarterback in Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people saying, well, the Titans let Derrick Henry walk because that's what you do when running backs reach around the age of 30. They slow down. I haven't seen any sign of him slowing down at all. He's been more efficient, if anything, than he has been in the past, which is crazy to think about. Lamar has been at MVP level. He wasn't last year. Last week, excuse me. They ran into a really hot Pittsburgh defense. They might be the best team in that division. But this is kind of in prime time. I think Lamar needs to rely on that offensive line a little bit more, stay in the pocket a little bit because – this Chargers team they're going up against is pretty good. Harbaugh's got them, Harbaugh on either side, but they are definitely a lot better than they were last year and how they have been in the past. I remember the Bengals game they had in primetime last week when Cincinnati comes storming back, and it's a game where in the past they would have lost. They would have kind of lost composure. You might see a mistake in the end there, and they end up losing the game, but they take care of business, and they end up winning it on the, again, the back of their offense. They could run the football, which is something we haven't seen in a Justin Herbert offense for a while. Dobbins has been spectacular. They kind of mimic each other. You got two brothers who kind of have similar schemes. They kind of mimic each other, what they try to do on offense now. And I think this is a tremendously big game for the Ravens, maybe a little bit more so than the Chargers, but the Chargers still got to keep pace with the Chiefs. I'm excited for this game.
Here's one of the things, numbers-wise, that has almost polar opposites in some respects. Baltimore is number 3 in passing. They're number 2 in rushing. They're number 2 in scoring. But defensively, they're 23rd. They're in the bottom end of the league, points at 24. The Chargers are very average. Passing the ball, they're 19th. Rushing, they're 12th, which is pretty good. Scoring, they're 13th, which is okay. But defensively, they're number one in the league. They give up 14 points a ball game. So it'll be interesting to see how this meshes with clutch, with gas, and how they're able to kind of figure out what they're going to do. With one team say, man, if we can hold them, our offense can win. And the other one going, if our offense can score, our defense is going to hold them. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. But the Harbaugh Bowl will be Monday night. That's at 8:15 on ABC. Brian, your final thoughts here on this week. We got how many teams? 6 of them this week that have buys. Let me go over that with you in alphabetical order. Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, New Orleans, the New York Jets, and Jacksonville all have the week off.
I think a couple of those teams, I would say the Jets and the Falcons for sure, probably need to reset a little bit, try to figure out what they got going wrong. I think the Buffalo Bills are probably mad as a hornet that they have to stop playing football the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks. But I mean, all the games we talked about, these top 5 games, these are big games with playoff implications. I know it's still early on in the season. We still got 6 games to go. But as far as seeding, as far as divisional records, this is a big week, and I'm excited to watch it.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and we hope that you are as well. Thank you for tuning in today. This is another episode of 100 Yards of Football. Brian LeBel is in for Vincent Turner. We want to thank Logan Landers for putting all the pieces together, our producer and engineer. And we want to thank you for tuning in today. Again, 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL edition. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a fantastic day.